Thank you for joining us today. It's going to be a great couple of days. And the theme for the American Climate Leadership Summit is breakthrough. So we thought we would start by taking a moment to think about what does breakthrough mean? So Merriam-Webster says it means an act or instance of moving through or beyond an obstacle, such as a breakthrough in the decision of our nation's leaders to stay in the Paris Agreement, which we hope that the House votes on this week. And also, of course, a set in advance, especially in knowledge or technique. And that's one of the reasons we're here today. We're here to find breakthroughs on climate. So a societal breakthrough in public support and political will for climate solutions is what we're seeking today at the summit.
And actually, Meighen, we're going to hear about exciting breakthroughs in climate leaderships and also in solutions. We are going to collaborate together to make sure that we catapult climate as a national priority. And we have a full-pack agenda, so could you tell us a little bit about the agenda?
Sure, and it's in your booklet. So everyone should have got an attendee booklet at check-in, but here's just a preview, if I can get it to come up. So we're going to have our opening session now, and I know a lot of people are still getting their food and making their way in. Our first plenary is about the state of our climate, breakthrough and solutions. We'll go into clean energy, and then we'll talk about nature as well. It's really about saying where are we on climate and what is happening? What is all the great news on solutions? After lunch, where we'll have a lunchtime discussion, which will be in the ballroom, by the way, and we'll have ushers that will help get us there. We'll come back in here for a couple of more sessions that focus on people. And first one on justice and inclusion and just transition, and then breakthroughs in public engagement. From there, we will go into a working session, and that's where we'll hear from you, and which is very important. But if you need anything during the day, we have the folks outside at registration. Go ahead and ask them. We'll be going back and forth between here and the ballroom. We have ushers that will say usher on their badge. So if you need any help, they will help you. And anyone that says staff on their badge will help you as well.
Wonderful. So we're going to hear from very, very exciting speakers in a little bit. But first, we want you to know that this summit is for you. We try to make it as interactive as possible so we can involve all of us.
Absolutely. And in fact, we're trying to involve all Americans if possible. So I want to welcome the folks that are watching on the live stream. Perhaps my mother's watching at this time. We are live streaming on YouTube throughout the day. So if there are any folks that you know that wanted to come that couldn't make it, let them know that we've got the live stream available on YouTube, and they can join us. So welcome live stream.
Wonderful. So now I would like to take a moment to remember our intention and why we're here for. And in order to help us remember our intention, I would like to introduce Reverend Dr. Gerald Durley. Reverend Dr. Durley was student leader in the 1960s civil rights. He has multiple degrees in psychology, urban education, and divinity. He brings forward deep understanding on the connection between humans, communities, and the higher power. As pastor, he became intensely involved in climate change and environmental justice, and now he dedicates his life fully to these issues. He also serves on Eco America Blessed Tomorrow Leadership Circle. So to help us set our intention, please welcome Reverend Dr. Gerald Durley.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning. You don't sound excited. This is the best day of your life. This is the best day of your life. Why is it the best day? Because there's nothing you can do about yesterday and only hope you'll be here tomorrow. We're here at a life-changing event, a time when we can all come together and find common cause about a concern that directly, negatively, disproportionately impacts all of us. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you're here, and there's no accident that you're here. This is a special moment in time because the need is so great to what we're doing to the planet. We're indebted and personally grateful to Bob Perkowitz and the entire Eco America team. And if you're glad that you're here and you're thankful for what Bob and the team are doing, you ought to give them a round of applause. Oh, they can't hear you. That's what I like. You see, I've always been concerned about what the movement is about, what the climate movement is about, what is environmental justice about. One of the things that I found, and I started with Dr. King in 1959, the civil rights movement and the climate movement, I found the parallelisms in that we both said that we all have a constitutional right to clean water, clean air. We have a constitutional right to be able to go out and see the bees and the birds and the trees blooming. But for some reason, there are ignorant people who are deniers that are denying that. So we've got to stand bold together because we're on the winning team. We're the group of people that's going to talk about how we begin to mitigate against what's going on in terms of climate change, in terms of fracking, in terms of drilling in the oil, in the oceans for the oil. So it starts with us. But I've been to some conferences, and I must admit, present company excluded, where people who have a tremendous background in science, a tremendous background in business, great politicians, and they're concerned about how do we make a difference. And I understand that business people want to get involved because they have an investment, and that's good. People want to make a return on their investment. Science wants to get the information out. Politicians want power. But I've learned now from the civil rights movement that you can take business, you can take politics, and you can take science, but it must rest upon a moral obligation. This is a moral struggle where we do not put profits over people. So those in this room today and for the next several days, as you listen to all of the speakers, you'll be involved with something so powerful to reach down into the very DNA of your being to say, I've got to make a difference. I am the difference. And that's why this conference is so important, but it has to be a moral decision. When we make decisions about what we put into the ocean, when we destroy the plankton and the corals are beginning to be bleached, we can make the difference. And the reason I say that is because I almost stopped coming to conferences like this because I met some very intelligent people. I met some people that were profound in what was going on in the climate all over the world. They could talk about the green in Greenland. They could the ice glaciers melting. They talked about the plastics in the ocean. But you know what I found out? They were dull. Dull as dirt. I mean, they were dull. I said, oh, I can't take another. You will leave this place not only more knowledgeable, but you'll leave with a commitment and the concern that we've got to be excited. We're in competition with Atlanta housewives. We're in competition with breaking news. We're in competition with deniers. So we've got to be enthusiastic. And I find that the way to be enthusiastic, we have in Eco America something we call Blessed Tomorrow, where the Muslims and Christians and Jews and even the atheists come together to believe that we can. And when we left in the movement, I never thought I'd be in a movement like this. I was always concerned about police brutality, teenage pregnancy, regentification. But a lady came up to me one day, and you'll never know when somebody comes up to you and makes a difference in your life. This summit will make a difference in your life when your eyes are open and your minds are sharp and your tongues are ready to speak truth to power. And it's interesting that this lady came up to me and she said, will you help me deal with teenage pregnancy here in the state of Georgia? I looked at her, I said, I don't have time for that, lady. I've got other things to do. She said, but you've got to do it. I want you to meet my husband. He's excited about it. I said, I don't have anything to do with polar bears, lady. That's not what I'm about. But when Jane Fonda finished talking to me and introduced me to her husband, Ted Turner, I said, what is all of this about? And then Sally Bingham, then the Interfaith Power and Light, and Laura Seidel and so many others began to touch my life and turn it around. That's when I knew that what we were doing is so important. So I see the connection between the civil rights movement and the climate and environmental movement. And when we pull those two things together and connect the dots that'll make, because we've got to get into people's gut. People are dying. They've got diseases now that we can't even define because of what we've done with the global, with the climate and the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide in the air. So we've got to do this, and this is why this conference is so important. But as we knew in the civil rights movement, there were two words that we were willing to do, and I'm sure that Bob Perkowitz would want you to know these two words from this summit today. What are you willing to sacrifice, and what are you willing to risk? What are you willing to sacrifice, and what are you willing to risk? And one of the things before we would go out in March, whether it was Andy Young or John Lewis or any of us, we would always say we've got to go to God in prayer. Nothing starts unless we realize that we're finite beings, but when we reach the point of finitude, that's when we've got to go to the infinite. And the infinite gives us source when you're ready to quit, when you're ready to give up, when you're ready to walk away, when you're ready to bow down, when you're ready to almost break, you go to God. Whatever your God. It might be Allah, it might be Buddha, it might be Jehovah Jireh, it might be Jesus Christ, whoever that is. And I had to learn that when you're sitting in a jail cell or when you're in the jail cell of your own mind and your own demise, where we take ignorance and displaced health, hate, and put us in little boxes. We're here to liberate those boxes, and the way to liberate those is to go to God in prayer. So as I go verbally, because they gave me 5 minutes, but don't give a Baptist preacher 5 minutes. It takes us 5 minutes to clear our throats. But when you're excited about something, I would say that when you leave here, there ought to be some excitement. The word enthusiasm is entheos, in God. And if you got here this morning, not on your own, you got here because something allowed you to get up with a reasonable portion of your mind. And that reasonable portion of your mind allows your blood to flow through your body, the peristaltic motions in your stomach to churn up your food. There is a God. And when you reach that point where you say, is anybody listening to me? Why won't they hear me down at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? What is Wheeler doing? I'm glad we got rid of Pruitt. But something was bigger. I'm not going to get political. I'm in a good mood this morning. So we have to go to God. So if you would, because this year more people will die of loneliness. More people will die having not been touched. And unfortunately, in our movement, more people will suffer and die from so many diseases, children with asthma, old people being asphyxiated, wildfires burning. So we've got to just thank God that you're here to be the emissaries. They didn't tell me that I was going to be in a room full of PhDs today, but I'm glad to see all of you with a PhD, meaning professionally handling demands. And all of you have a PhD. Join with me as we approach God's throne of grace. Allow your mind to relax. You're here now. You've been on the battlefield a long time. You've championed the causes legislatively in your various places. You've seen the devastation of what we're doing to God's beautifully, equally, ecologically balanced earth. But now I want you to relax, because you relaxed before the battle. And never forget this, wherever you go, we're on the winning team, because justice is on our side. Righteousness is on our side. Put that down inside of you as we go to God in prayer. Eternal and almighty, divine, righteous God, we come once again before your full fountain. We come, God, as empty pitchers. We come, God, looking to you for guidance. We come, God, looking for you to touch our minds and our spirits. We come, God, right now because we face a dilemma in this nation and in this world where droughts, hurricanes, tsunamis, wildfires, diseases are rampant. And God, in this room, you have a handful of your selected people. We don't need any more visionaries. God, I thank you. I'm speaking to some solutionaries today. People that look for solutions and not just visions. God, give them the internal fortitude to be strong and insightful and wise. Bless Eco America and all of its staff. Bless Bob Perkowitz and Lisa and all of those that have put their time in. God, let the time and the energy and the resources come into being. God, we ask you now to touch the minds and the hearts of those that deny the very obvious. How do you deny a polar vortex? How do you deny what we're doing when bees have been destroyed from the planet? So God, I ask you right now to touch each person that hears my small voice. Let them understand that they are the emissary that you've personally chosen. And when they finish this training, when they finish touching and agreeing, God, let them leave this place with such a glow about them that when they get on the plane or the car or however they got here, somebody will say there is something unique about that person. They must have been to Eco America and been touched. So now let the anointing fall on this place. And if you're ready to get in the struggle or continue in the struggle and say that I will not bend and I will not break and I will not bow down, we ask this prayer in the name of all the great prophets, and those who believe it should say amen right now. Amen. Let them hear you down the street. I can't even hear you. 1600 Pennsylvania is waiting to hear what we say. We're on the winning team. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, are we awake this morning? I think we're all awake now, and we're all feeling energized. Yes. Thank you, Reverend Durley, for getting us going this morning. Okay, wonderful. So next we're going to hear from Bob Perkowitz. Bob, as many of you know, is the founder and president of Eco America, and I can honestly say that I know no other person that's more passionate about expanding, diversifying, and building climate leadership. He could be spending his time enjoying anything, including traveling, riding his bike across the country like he does, across continents, wine collection, and his grandchildren, and in fact, he actually does, and then also works night and day on climate change. So he's tireless, and I am thankful to be leading Eco America with him. So please welcome Bob Perkowitz.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, people used to come up to me and say, "Hi, how are you?" Now they come up to me and they say, "How are your grandkids?" That's Ellie on the right there looking at you, and she's 5, and her baby brother, JT, is on the left with his first 100 words book and a little car. He always has a little car by him. And the little guy that just popped up in the middle, he's Anderson. He's 6 months old, so I have 3 grandkids right now. And, they are all doing well. They're beautiful, innocent little people, so thank you for asking. Unfortunately, the planet isn't quite doing so well. We've had to kind of invent a whole new vocabulary for what's going on. Whether you're in Paradise, California, or Paradise, Nebraska, the world has changed. We're in the new normal. It's not something that's going to happen. That's where we are right now, all over the world. The new vocabulary, polar vortex, cyclone bombs, firestorms. It's a lot of adjectives with things like unprecedented and record in front of them every week somewhere around the world. The scientists came out with 2 reports last year that were pretty sobering. They're kind of saying that things are looking grim, and this is looking like our last chance to save what's going on, save our planet. We've got atmospheric, ocean, surface temperatures all rising, snow cover going away, glaciers going away, all the things that you know about. And what happened when these reports came out is that a lot of us thought that these things were going to happen in 2050, 2100, and basically what they're saying is what we thought was 2100 is now 2040. Everything has accelerated a whole lot. And it's pretty straightforward what's happening here. We keep burning more and more fossil fuels in spite of everything that we're doing, and that, of course, is coming up with more greenhouse gas emissions, which is raising the temperature and causing more environmental disasters around the world. If you go back to the early 80s, there were about 250 major environmental disasters a year. Right now, we're at 750 a year, and it's still growing. And some people think it's going to be a lot worse. The New York Times editorial board did Time to Panic in January. David Wallace Wells' book is out there. There's a lot of indicators that we really need to act right now. There's more carbon in the atmosphere today. There's 1/3 more carbon in the atmosphere than there has been at any time in the last 800,000 years. So we've been kind of like working on this for a long, long time. But now it's time to act on it, because climate change is everything, and there's a journal for it or there's a book for it right now. It changes our health, it changes our psychology, agriculture, our economics. It changes our morality, whether or not we're going to allow this to happen. This is the biggest moral challenge that we face. And it's pretty straightforward what we have to do. It's getting more and more difficult every year. But right now, we have to start taking out reduce our emissions by half every decade going forward, cut it in half every decade. And then the lines at the bottom is the Earth has absorbed all the carbon that it can. We have to start taking carbon out of the system. And we can still do that. We can reduce our emissions 50% per decade, and we can take carbon out of the system. We know how to do that. But that's what we're here for right now, is to achieve a breakthrough. There are people where climate change is an issue, and it's one of many, and there are other people where climate change is the issue that dominates what they do. And for all of us here, we've kind of got to make climate change be the issue that dominates what we do. We've had a bunch of breakthroughs already. In particular, the cost of wind and solar have come down. They've gone in less than a decade from being our most expensive sources of energy, pretty much, to our least expensive. Right now, $43 per megawatt. That's a lot of places right now. This is the actual cost that people are paying for energy right now. This is not a projection. This is what people are actually paying for energy. Right now, renewables are our lowest cost energy source. But everybody says there's a little problem with intermittency that, and Trump makes jokes about this all the time, the sun isn't shining, the wind isn't blowing, how do I dry my hair? Well, the fact of the matter is that we have solved the battery storage problem in the past 2 years. The cost of lithium-ion batteries has fallen by 86% in the past 5 years, 30% last year alone. This is Florida Power and Light. They built the largest battery storage farm in the world last year, and it was a 10 megawatt grid battery. They have announced that they're going to build another one that's 40 times that size, 40 times the largest one. They just announced that 2 months ago. And they're going to shut down 2 natural gas plants because of the lower cost of battery storage right now. And thank you. And utilities like Florida Power and Light is no big friend of the environment. They're doing it because it costs less. So right now, there's no real reason left anymore why we can't switch most of our systems to wind and solar. It costs less even with battery storage attached to it. And a lot of people are moving that way. We've got 121 cities in America right now that have committed to 100% clean energy. We've got 5 states. There's about a dozen countries right now that have committed to. So the whole world, even the entire continent of Europe, 28 countries have all coming up with a plan to go to zero net emissions by 2050. Now, they're going to still probably fly airplanes and use some fossil fuels, but whatever they use, they're going to end up taking that much out, reforestation and mechanical means are going to take the carbon out of the atmosphere. So this whole continent is supposed to be net neutral on climate by 2050. That's what we need to do. That's what the planet needs to do. We can save ourselves if we do that. America should be leading on that, and unfortunately, we're not. The political situation here, though, is also amidst a breakthrough. If you take a look at the progressives, they took back the House, and they immediately, in the first week, proposed new legislation on climate change. We call that the Green New Deal. The progressives are working at it from a social side. They want jobs. They want health care. On the right, they're approaching it mostly from an economic side. Some people are doing a little bit more, but mostly they're promoting it on an economic basis. They want to put a price on carbon and get people to change their behaviors by making carbon cost more and rebating it to people. But there's people working on the left, and there are people working on the right. Eco-America works on the middle. We'll talk more about that later. But another breakthrough, I think, is our next Nobel Prize winning person here. You heard it here first. There's like 200 people that are nominated. She's going to win. She's 16 years old. She's inspiring Greta is inspiring a whole movement of young people. There are so many quotes I could put up here for her, but she's just calling us out. She is demanding action on climate change, and that's what we all need to do. But so we've got the XR, the Extinction Rebellion in Europe. This is Santiago, Lisbon, Paris, and London in the past 3 weeks. All of them, tens of thousands of kids out there. It's almost embarrassing having to have your kids go out and tell you what's the right thing to do. But that's what they're doing. And we have our own Sunrise movement here that's doing the same thing. So, I'm hoping that, this is just one more piece in the puzzle to solve this whole thing. And then at Eco America, we have partnerships with 41 different organizations right now and about 100 different national organizations in our coalitions. A lot of these people are really leading the way too. People in this room that have decided to take their organization and say that climate change was an issue maybe, and now it's going to be a #1 issue. And for many of them, it's kind of stepping out a little bit because there's a lot of people that think this is still a political issue and argue about it. But you know, the more that you can stand up and lead, the bigger chance that we have to make this thing, to fix it. My whole life right now is geared at 2020, 2021, 2022. I think that that is our last chance. I think that we have to go out and get the right elected people. People are totally committed to climate change, and they have to drive legislation through in 2021 and 2022. And if we can do that, we can turn this whole thing around. And so at Eco America, we're shifting. We've got this whole series of communications guides. We do an incredible amount of research, and we've been getting people to talk about climate change more. And now on the right side there, we're getting them to act. We're producing guides for communities, for congregations, for healthcare facilities on what to do about climate change, because it turns out that when you just talk about it, people worry, but they don't know what to do. So we have a whole series of guides that are shifting toward telling them how to advocate, how to mitigate, what they should do. And then my last slide here, this is what we think of as the solution. We've got to mitigate, we've got to adapt, and we've got to geoengineer. When I hear those words, mitigate means stop polluting, adapt means accept what we have, and geoengineer means maybe mess up things more while we're trying to fix it. I think we got to replace those words. We have to reverse our climate pollution. We have to build resilience in our personalities and in our communities, and we have to restore a healthy, beautiful planet. If we can get into the concept of climate restoration, of making the world a beautiful place, maybe even more beautiful than when I was born, the kids, Kelly's kid, you know, these kids are going to have a really beautiful future. So we have an opportunity to have a healthier, happier, more beautiful, safer, cleaner planet. We have an opportunity to not do that. And so I think leadership in this room, when the goal for the breakthrough thing is really breakthrough with each of you personally, so when you go back out into the world that you amp up your action on climate change and change your organization, change your community, change the country, and change the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. So,
That was very inspiring, and
yeah.
we are going to be hearing from Bob much more later in the day.
And speaking of hearing from people, we want to hear from you at some point during the day, at any point during the day. We want to keep the energy up in the room. So many of you are from some far-reaching places in the country. We even have someone coming in from Puerto Rico. Is that person here today? There you are, yay. So we've got all coasts, Midwest, all coasts in the room. So welcome, welcome. I know some of you have traveled farther than others and through storms to get here, and some are still stuck in flights and will be here soon.
And we know that you come from different backgrounds and perspectives. And Meighen, do you know that today we're going to have more than 400 leaders from 33 different states. And this is wonderful because it shows how important this issue is for all of us. Okay.
We also have, with the support of the Kresge Foundation, we have 23 rising leaders that are joining us that would not have been able to be here without the scholarship. So I want to thank the Kresge Foundation for bringing them here. You can see their bios in your book. They're doing amazing things across the country and in Puerto Rico. And we're very glad that they're here today. So please say hello to them and collaborate with them in the working sessions.
And this day is it's wonderful, not only for learning and for inspiration and empowerment, but also to make connections. I mean, we're here in this room because we care about our planet. So it's a great opportunity to make new friends, to work together to advance agendas on sustainability.
Wonderful. I also want to thank, we have some colleagues who are from Interfaith Power and Light, and some other faith organizations. They're out on the Hill today asking Congress to lead on this issue. Yesterday we had folks from the American Lung Association and a medical consortium also asking leaders to lead and speak about climate and health. We're all united on this. We're letting Congress know we're united, and we're hoping that they will vote on H.R. 9 this week. But the idea here is that we want you in this room to really be inspired about climate change and let other Americans know that leaders are leading on this issue, and you are too, and they can do.
And this is a movement that has a lot of energy, so we want to keep it up during the day. We want to make sure that you are part of this conference too, so make sure that you tweet and do your Facebook and Instagram if you have one with the hashtag ACLS19. And also you can put hashtag Brave.